So welcome to the weekly recap video. We have a little follow-up and some E3 awards to do.
Yeah.
We have our hottest topic is some really interesting activity in the media, basically turning on the Xbox One X.
Yeah, it looks like they're really going after
some really interesting things happening there. Big shout out at the end to J-Dubs, Jay Williams. A little bit of a hint about that on my shirt. And, of course, some miscellaneous things.
Little
miscellaneous,
topics
exciting little things. So E3 awards are out, and what I mean by E3 awards, so PlayStation does their blog awards, which is essentially what people liked the best that watched E3 that are PlayStation fans. And the three big highlights, so the number one trailer was for God of War. Most anticipated game was also God of War. And most anticipated VR game, there was not a VR God of War. So most anticipated VR game was Skyrim.
Okay. Could see that, I guess.
Those were all the kind of big ones. And then Xbox One X won the Game Critics Award for hardware.
Makes
the
sense.
Xbox One X.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which brings us to, I guess, where all of our next point kind of started. With the
hottest topic of the week.
The hottest topic of the week. So it all kind of started really at E3.
Yeah.
I would say. Is it safe to say that?
Well, it actually started a little bit prior to E3.
A little bit prior to E3. In fact, it actually started when Digital Foundry did their specs reveal.
A lot of people feel like Digital Foundry did a really good job, and they were sort of turning sides a little bit, because most people have recognized them as being extremely pro Sony or pro PlayStation,
anti-Microsoft more specifically,
and anti Xbox, I would say.
Yeah.
Not so much the companies. I don't really feel like they hate a company.
They just have strong preference to PlayStation and how.
They've been one of the sites that has pushed that narrative that the Xbox One had been underpowered since the reveal. And the thing that they've failed to acknowledge or failed to mention about the Xbox One is that it's had several boosts to its GPU and CPU architecture over time. It had a couple right before launch. Like I don't know if people remember the specs, but the frequency on the CPU was very low. It was something like 500 megahertz or something like that. And it went up quite a bit from there. So they did overclocking on the CPU, they did overclocking on the GPU multiple times. Then after that, they updated the software development kits multiple times. So the power has been increasing every year on the Xbox One. So it's nowhere near what it was pre-launch. But everyone at Digital Foundry and all the other media sites continue to act like it's still the pre-launch numbers. Which is interesting. So they've been pushing that narrative for a long time. Some of the things they would use to try to show evidence of that was certain games were originally rendered at 900p and then output at 1080p.
Yeah.
And so they would try to use that as saying, well, obviously it's weaker and that's why that happens. Actually, the reason why that happens a lot, or it used to, is they were not the lead platform. Sony was the lead platform. So the bulk of the development time goes into the PlayStation version of the game.
And then the Xbox version is ported over from the PlayStation.
Is usually a port, essentially, of the PlayStation version. And sometimes the Xbox architecture does certain things a little bit better. So that's why you see certain times the frame rate's a little bit smoother, or maybe there's a little more ambient occlusion or anisotropic filtering or other weird little things like that you'll see better, and it's just because the Xbox does it automatically. It's not something they really had to put months and months of development time in.
And that's why all of the exclusives to Xbox have always looked really, really good.
Yeah.
Had really good frame rates.
Definitely.
So more so in the multiplats. Digital Foundry has had a history of changing
of making the Xbox look as bad as it possibly can. To be blunt,
that would be the stronger way to say it. Yeah.
I mean, we're just going to call it
switching facts around to make them fit.
We got to call it
as
we see it. Yeah. And we've been seeing it for 4 years.
And really, there's just such an interesting thing happening right now in the entire media, and I cringe to call it the media.
Pretty much all of them.
Because it's
not the gaming sites.
The gaming sites, the outlets that consider themselves to be the gaming media. But many of the professional behaviors, or unprofessional rather, the behaviors that we've seen from them would tell you that they're not media outlets at all whatsoever. They're just glorified groups of people who have opinions about particular things.
Yeah, well, you mentioned E3. Not to cut you off if you're going to make a point, but you mentioned E3. We saw even right before the show, you saw Jeff Keighley doing the leaks. And
doing
then
the leaks to try to get people like hyped in the wrong direction.
In the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And then you had Ryan McCaffrey and some of the same stuff he was saying.
Talking about how he tweeted that morning, like, if my gut is correct and it's $4.99, this will be the biggest failure ever for Microsoft.
Yeah.
Or I might be exaggerating that a little bit, but
I'm
not much.
afraid my gut is correct.
I'm afraid my gut. That's right. I'm afraid my gut is correct. And he's going off of Jeff Keighley's
Tribalism.
leak.
Did you forget that one?
Yep. So, and then it became, if anybody supports this product at this price, it's complete and total consumer tribalism.
Yeah.
Which was just downright crazy. Like that's a journalist, quote unquote, that's saying that.
Yeah.
And then from there, all week long this week, so this is our weekly recap, all week long this week has just been the most interesting headlines. The one that pops into my head is the one about the Xbox One X will force you to download hardware or software, to run the hardware, whether or not you have a 4K TV.
Forcing the 4K assets.
Forcing the 4K assets. So first of all, why would I not want my games to look better? That is one of the selling points of the Xbox One X, is even if you don't have a 4K TV yet, which I would argue probably none of the media does with the way that they're approaching this.
Oh no, these people can't afford 4K TVs.
Yeah, so
if you listen to what they have to say.
Exactly. Yeah. They're telling us that that's the case, and that's definitely controlling where their narrative is coming from. Although they are saying that it's not controlling that. But it's, what console ever hasn't had software downloads? First of all, consoles have software.
We
updates
constantly
and
get updates for all our games.
Everything. So there's that piece, and then there's the fact that will, no matter what you're playing on, make it look better. So why would you not want something to look better?
It does a super sampling technique where essentially, even if you have a 1080p, you still get a huge benefit from the 4K textures, the assets.
So it upgrades what you have.
The draw distance.
Even if it's not a 4K TV, it will upgrade what you have, and it will will make the game look the best that it can look.
Yeah, the varimetric lighting, the God rays, all the different, the shadows, the improved everything. All of that's still going to look better in 1080p if you don't want to upgrade to 4K.
Right.
So they're not talking about that. That is being 100% completely ignored. Even going back to what we were saying about Digital Foundry at the beginning there, if you go back to that specs reveal that they did, the deep dive that they did, even there, they dropped a couple things that hinted at the future and how they were going to figure out a way to criticize Xbox in the future. Yeah. They compared it to a GTX 1070. They said that it was somewhere around there, maybe a little bit above a GTX 1070 or maybe a little bit below. The graphics card for PC gaming. But then elsewhere, they contradicted that in the same... there's videos and articles where they contradict that same statement. Then... they've since tried to recreate, lots of sites have tried to recreate the Xbox hardware using GTX 1070 and had less than what we've already seen at E3's results. So obviously, it's not on the level of GTX 1070, even though a lot of people keep promoting that. It's probably higher than that. Then factor in the fact that it wasn't finalized hardware. Back then, it was in the 70 to 80 range.
Right.
And we don't know what it's going to be. If you add another third to the power, to the optimization, to everything else that's going to be finalized before launch, where's that going to put it? It's probably going to be well above a GTX 1080, most likely. And then they did a couple other things. I'm trying to remember what else they said. Oh, they down-talked the CPU. They tried to say it was a Jaguar Evolve CPU.
Yeah, they said something that made a lot of people go, "Oh, wow, that's all they're putting in there."
And a lot of people,
and it was wrong. It was just dead wrong. It
were
was
afraid.
False information.
Yeah. So and you've seen people try to spread that narrative in YouTube and Twitter and other gaming sites. There's still people talking about it and saying it's a Jaguar. Yeah. When Microsoft has come out in a podcast saying that they are not comfortable calling it anything because it's far beyond. Custom. Yes, it's custom and it's so far beyond anything they've ever worked with.
Right.
So...
Well, and you can't tell me that Digital Foundry goes there for a specs reveal that they're getting to do. Nobody's getting to do this. And they would just mess up a CPU. They would just goof up on a CPU or a GPU and call it the wrong thing.
That is very odd.
When they have their own specs reveal. You got to go spend days there talking about this. How would you just oopsie and get the CPU wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, that completely doesn't fit.
Well, so they left their seeds back there, and they're going to allow them to grow over the next 3 or 4 years.
So they're going to keep modifying the things that they've kind of set up that way and saying, "Oh, see, we told you."
I wouldn't be surprised if after it comes out, one of these sites say, well, it's actually comparable to a GTX 1060 instead.
Yeah, they start downgrading.
They start downgrading, just like they did with the sales numbers. It starts going backwards.
Exactly.
It's really funny to see that. It seems like the entire gaming media, the sites, whatever you want to call them, are piling up against the X in particular, pre-order, pre-launch.
Right, before we've even seen anything really. And there was the podcast that IGN does for Xbox,
which is called Unlocked,
I think. Yeah. They actually had a lot of comments onto their Twitter about, how much they were criticizing the Xbox One X. And so then they posted on Twitter about, it seems like you're offended that we're criticizing the X, and they literally said criticizing, and it's like this is a product that's not out yet. We haven't seen it. You should not be criticizing it.
Yeah,
what are you criticizing, and what do you think you're doing with criticism? Like you're criticizing something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that they would be doing that if they didn't have an agenda against it.
Yeah. Imagine if you did that for the iPhone, whenever the new iPhone gets launched. Nobody does that. Oh, it's
definitely going to be broken the second it launches.
It's definitely going to be worse somehow because of the price.
They're going to downgrade that. It's going to be comparable to the nearest Samsung or Android. That would never happen.
Yeah.
So there's clearly an agenda against the Xbox One X, whether it's because maybe the people who are reporting these things aren't planning on having one.
They're not bought in.
Don't have the 4K TV to go with it, although I do feel like Microsoft's been crystal clear that that's not necessary or
you can enjoy it on any TV.
Important. It will still upgrade everything anyway. And then again, there's still just continued criticism about the price, but it's the same launch price as a couple of other consoles on both sides that have been launched in the past.
Yeah.
So that is very interesting.
The PS3 is less than 10 times what the X is power-wise, and it launched. It had a $499 version that only had a 20 gig hard drive.
Right.
Okay, so put that into perspective for a moment, and that sold at the $499 and the $599 price. That sold tens of millions right there. At least 10 million units were out the door at those two price points.
Yeah.
And that was before they did any price drops because it took them a while to start doing price drops. So.
Well, and I don't think there was probably at least this amount of media going against the PlayStation 3 when it launched. I don't think there was
not at all
negative comments and
I was
criticism
paying just as much
in
attention back then.
podcasts and all of that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because these people who claim to kind of represent Xbox for their company or their division are going after it, acting like they're concerned fans. They're acting like, oh, well, I'm really worried about the future of Xbox. And yet, by all accounts, everybody's satisfied with the Xbox One X launch. In fact, even Jeff Keighley, who is, I think, pretty clearly on the Sony side, did a poll about who won E3. And because of the X, even that poll was completely polarized to the Microsoft side. So that is really interesting.
Xbox or Microsoft won all those polls that I saw.
Yeah,
pretty much
everyone that I saw. Even people who, because obviously a lot of Twitter is echo chambers of people who have people like them. So you would expect those to come out that way. But there are also a lot of major media polls that came out that way. So that would tell you where we are. And then, in my opinion, I guess it causes them to want to control that narrative because all of a sudden they're just going after it constantly, and they're doing literally a news video to announce that there will be a download that you'll need to do on this new console
that forces you,
which is just taking it really, really far.
That's interesting. Interesting word usage and choice there.
Interesting word usage. Like it forces a very strong word, and it we're not hearing that we're forced to update our Xboxes right now or our PlayStations right now, so it doesn't seem newsworthy. Yeah. It's truly not media. So other random things, personally. So I saw an article about the potential, nothing's actually been revealed, for the fact that the BioWare team that does Dragon Age might be working on another Dragon Age.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is, I shouldn't have seen that because now I'm over here, on the edge of my seat because that is my favorite game of all time was Dragon Age Inquisition. Yeah. So I'm even trying to play back through the old Dragon Ages on the backwards compatibility, and I loved Inquisition so much I shouldn't have started with it.
It's hard to play.
Nothing can ever compare to those. So if they're making a new one with our new mechanics and our new graphics that even Inquisition had that, I mean, wow, that should be, as long as they don't let the Andromeda team work on it. As long as that doesn't happen, as long as they keep the Dragon Age team, which I really sincerely do hope because, we thought that the next Mass Effect would also
even if the team that worked on Andromeda works on it, they can still learn from some of the mistakes. They're not
some
going to
of the
repeat
things that
those
happen
mistakes.
with Andromeda.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which Andromeda is still a great game. I still
Well,
really
it's
like
a
it.
good game. I'd say I would downgrade it personally to decent game after having really gotten into the story and how the characters are. Really not a fan of the characters.
I'm not
That's
a fan of the characters either.
It wasn't the awkward animations or the eyes or any of that stuff. It was the characters.
It's the youngness
and the voice,
of the characters.
Yeah.
And the voice acting was
acting.
horrible.
It's really bad.
I've never seen voice acting that bad, so that was really disappointing. Which, actually, Dragon Age Inquisition has really good voice acting. That was a big part of
that's
how that story flows.
Much better
Yeah.
narrative in that game,
Yeah,
definitely.
so that's... I hope that it is in development, because that was a rumor,
yeah.
but I do think, I mean, the way that the quote came out of the developer, it does sound like it is happening.
Yeah, I think it is.
But I also hope that it's, exceptional beyond even Dragon Age Inquisition, which my favorite game of all time is Dragon Age Inquisition. Second would be Gears of War 4, but all of the Gears of War.
Yeah.
And those two games for me are just not comparable to anything else.
Yeah.
They
We're
just
talking,
really
hundreds of hours of gameplay you got out of
hundreds and hundreds of hours of gameplay. Like, literally, I think I was in the 200 area on Dragon Age, and I still want to play.
I was over 200 hours.
I have to tell myself, you don't need to keep playing that game and keep playing it backwards. So I'm glad something's in progress. I am also excited about the new SNES Mini.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a mini version of it, kind of a limited edition relaunch for people to be able to play the retro games.
Well, they did the NES Mini first. So they knocked that out. Then that was limited time that you could buy that. I don't know, it was like a year, maybe 3/4, 9 months or so. It was right around there, something. But it's funny how people are already figuring out ways to try to criticize this and say it's a bad thing.
They're always after Nintendo.
Nintendo too, they get it a lot as well, but they get it from a different audience. They get it from analysts.
Like the stock analysts.
Stock analysts.
They get a lot of financial criticism. And it was really interesting because the day that the SNES was announced, the stock went up a little bit, which is from people being excited about it and buying the stock. And then the next day, I go onto the stocks and I look at what Nintendo's done, and it's dropped like $1.50, $2. I don't remember what the number was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how in the world did that happen? They announced the SNES yesterday. There's just no way. And then the top two headlines were like, will the SNES launch hurt the Switch production that's already a problem? And then the next one was, and it's going to be really limited. So, I mean, there's really nothing to get excited about. And I'm like, these analysts are just... They're just after Nintendo.
It will be limited because that's the way Nintendo has always done business.
But it's a previous product. I mean, it's like a retro limited edition. Yeah. Of course it's limited. Like, why would you continue selling that? That's a nostalgic trinket kind of thing. It's not...
It's meant to...
It wouldn't make sense to do it another way.
It drums up a certain amount of hype. But they have a plan, though, and they've done similar types of things in the past with releasing some of these things on, or some of their older games on, like Game Boy and DS and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then switching over to a different format later on. So what they like to do, and what they're probably going to do with both of these devices that we're talking about, these minis, is it's going to be limited. It's going to be there for a year or 9 months or whatever it is. And then they're going to cut it off. People are going to be upset that it's cut off. And then at some point in time in the future, they're going to announce a virtual console version for the Switch. And you're going to be able to download these games, and they're going to be able to charge you, $5, $10 each?
Yeah.
That's much better for their finances, for their bottom line, than leaving the SNES out there permanently forever, which is something, if you listen to some of these podcasts, that people are complaining about, they should leave it there because they can print money with that. You can print even more money on a digital download than you can on a physical device.
Well, anyone who buys that miniature SNES is buying it purely from a nostalgia standpoint. They remember playing. SNES was what I played as a kid. Yeah. So I would be excited to play those games again, but ultimately you play them again for a bit, and then it's kind of like, that was cool. I'm glad I got to do that again.
Yeah.
And that's when porting things over to the Switch and continuing the ecosystem they currently have going comes into play. So that's a really smart financial decision to relaunch an old product, get people excited again, and then bring the games that they're excited about in probably a newer and better version. Like the new Mario that's coming out looks so amazing compared to the Mario we played. So they can do something similar to that with the Switch. Definitely. But they have to get you back.
They're going to do this for the next 20 years.
Nintendo's one of the strongest business structures.
They always
out
make
there,
money on everything
which
they do.
is so ironic because they are one business that stock analysts just go after constantly, and it's like they're actually the best
they're always trying to rip them
business
apart
out there in this industry. I mean, they really know what they are doing.
Well, Microsoft makes more money, but that's because they own a lot of the patents and a lot of the things that go into
Microsoft
gaming.
is just huge. Nintendo is really a very small company, but the decisions that they do make are good decisions,
always profitable,
in my own opinion. Yeah. So special shout out. Do we have anything else? Did we miss anything?
I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. There wasn't a lot going on. There was a couple
Not a
other
lot
little
going on
stories.
this week. Yeah.
People try to make a big deal out of like a Crash Bandicoot thing that IGN did, but I investigated that as much as I could, and I saw it as a non-story personally. But
yeah, there was a lot of chatter going on in social media this week having to do with everything, all companies, and all of the comments from the media and all of that. So I really feel like if I look back at gaming this week, that's most of
it seems like
unfortunately
all the groups,
most of what I see.
Seems like all the groups in gaming, all the different little cliques they're always ready with their pitchforks. They're just ready to attack anything that moves. Yeah. Especially here after E3, as it's a slow period, and you're not going to see a lot of high quality videos from anyone really. Including us, we're not putting out videos every day because there's not that much.
There's just nothing going on right
There's
now.
not much going on.
Everybody gears up for E3, and then
there's always a down period after that for a month or two, and then it starts to ramp back up again, and it gets back into a normal pace. So you're going to see that, but it's just funny to see people get butthurt about
just start going crazy over the
smallest things you can imagine.
Well, and it's upsetting because it gives these media outlets
more clicks.
Yeah, it gives them the clicks that they're trying. That's what they're trying to do.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, people are so passionate about what they love and what they want to defend
that they end up promoting
E3, that they end up promoting it.
Yep.
They end up giving them tons of attention, tons of clicks, tons of watches. And if you're watching a YouTube video because you hate it or you hate the person doing it, you're still giving them a click. You're still giving them a watch, and it's working just fine for
or
the
worse,
because they've never cared what
clicking on links and going to the websites, and they
value
all
those ads just pouring into that company's bank account, and it's just
the best thing you can do is not make videos about it and not feed
click
into
on their
it.
Stuff, not pay attention, not give them.
If what you're saying is true, if what all these people are saying is true, where they don't want people going to these sites, every day I'm seeing a video from another YouTuber saying,
"I went and watched this video."
No. They're saying don't go to IGN, and then they give this 5, 10, 15 minute reason as to how horrible it is, which makes people want to go and see that.
Which is attention for IGN.
Yeah, it's like watching a car wreck. You can't look away. You want to know, well, is it really that bad?
Yeah.
So the very thing that you're trying to do is actually helping them even more.
Them. Yeah.
Which is terribly ironic, but it's it's
well,
fun.
And I kind of think of the gaming media and I almost think of like what would happen if 6-year-olds decided to create a media outlet as well, and the things that they would do and say. And that's exactly it, like you're just rallying attention for attention. They always say good attention or bad attention. It's attention.
Yeah.
And that's the very thing that they're doing. So it's like it's a big joke. It's so sad that I'm just shocked that anybody even plays into it. Anybody does anything besides just laugh and be like, wow, that is sad.
Yeah.
And just keep moving down your feed. So don't give them clicks. Don't give them clicks.
If you care. I don't really care either way, but yeah.
If you want to get your news, you kind of have to go other routes and find the original sources of things. So, unfortunately, there just kind of isn't a gaming media, an actual gaming media. So, special shout out to Jay Williams, J-Dubs. His Twitter handle is @graphic_god. So, first of all, awesome new...
what's it say?
There's no greater power than X.
No power greater than X.
No power greater than X.
Yeah.
I must be reading the circle in the wrong direction. So awesome shirts. He makes all kinds of shirts.
Yeah, right? so we'll link the Redbubble.
We'll link his Redbubble
so you can buy the shirt if you like it.
This one is really cool, but he has lots of cool stuff.
Definitely. Also does graphic design.
Also does all the graphic design. Did our graphics, our profile picture, our banner picture, all of that is J-Dubs as well. Really quality work, really great member of the community as well. So follow him on Twitter. It's @graphic_god, and it's J-Dubs. Is that it?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, and he works with everybody, so it's not just one particular type or group or community.
All kinds of graphics.
He'll help out. It doesn't matter if you're a Nintendo person, a PlayStation person, Xbox. It doesn't matter. I think he even helps out PC guys, which is.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So this guy is
taking that 48% drop they had in sales.
Yeah.
That's what J-Dubs is doing.
So definitely check him out. We'll link the Redbubble in the description and
as
follow
well
him on
as
Twitter.
his website. We'll link his website and
yeah,
his
if I can link both, I will definitely do both. But follow him on Twitter because you can access him there, and you can, if you want to work with him for graphic design or whatever, you can do that.
He's got a lot of his stuff up on his Twitter, so you can see what he does.
Definitely,
as well.
awesome guy.
Yeah. So if you like this video and you want to catch our next weekly update, subscribe to our channel, give this video a like. Thanks for watching.